Welcome, everybody, back to the Johnnydrinks podcast. I'm your co-host, Johnny. I'm here with...
This is John.
And what I call Aunt Laura, my mom's dearest friend, founder and president of Sam PR Agency. Right?
Sam Brown.
Right?
Sam
Brown. How are we feeling?
Great. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah,
I
it's
could
a long
talk
time
to you
coming.
two all day.
Well, we have. Yeah. And it's been a long time coming. We've wanted to have you on for a while now, so we're happy to get you in the room. But I want to start, I guess, let's reel it back to how you two met.
Yeah,
and
thank
your
you.
relationship. And then why I call you, I guess, Aunt Laura, and why you're such a integral part into my life. So let's take a step back to 1982?
Close, John. 1984, we graduated high school. We went to the same college together, State College, Glassboro. Now, obviously, Rowan University, where you graduated. So when Laura and I first met, we were 18-ish, 19, right? And we literally ran in and around the same places and spaces and college world, parties, all the things you do when you're in college. And I met her through my wife, your mom, Jennifer. And so this became very early on, who knew, fast forward where we are today, that we would be so close still, right? Seeing our families grow up together, going through a lot of things, the peaks and the valleys that are associated with just, life and taking risk and having families and the things that are associated with that. So the fun part about this for me today is I get to celebrate a friend. I get to talk and learn a little bit more of the granular things that she did to become who she is today in the professional space. Very impressive person from day one of meeting Laura, to know she was serious and committed to her direction. Sometimes a little too serious for college because she just wanted to always go to her classes and always get A's and strive for perfection. So that was, for me, somebody that I saw early on. And I'm not surprised where you are today. It's, again, a credit to your drive, your commitment. And again, the great part for me, I get to kind of step back and say, wow, look at all that you've accomplished. So before we get into where you are today, and again, giving everyone who's listening a little timetable. So it was 1988, we graduated, right? And right out of the college, you knew you were going to be in PR. And we used to kid around because there was other people in school that said that they were going to do PR. But you really did it. And I didn't know what PR was, public relations, right? So talk about a little bit there when you graduated, the first job you had. And, I think to the benefit also of the audience, what your major was. I know you had communications in there, right? We had a class together, voice and articulation. We'll talk about how she helped get me through that class. But I think it's really important the younger people in listening kind of connect those dots, right? Where you went to school, what you studied, and then where you are fast forward. And if there's some, lines that are going to always run very parallel, or does it maybe not matter and just kind of give your feedback on some of that? So go ahead, let her rip.
Yes,
let's hear it.
Thank you. I've had an incredible career. So in college, I had a degree in communications with a major in public relations. And the reason I chose that was because I wanted to be a journalist, but I love the business world. So it was the perfect career for me because mostly public relations is writing and communicating to all of your audiences to help you achieve your business goals. So I was like, I don't really want to be a journalist, but I don't really want to go into business. So it was perfect. And Glassboro State had an incredible program, they still do, in public relations. So I had all of the classes. Yes, we had classes together. John was always at my apartment. He was in love with my roommate, Jen Rondi now. So I did my first internship at Campbell Soup while I was still at college. And so that was just incredible to be in big corporate America job and really do public relations there. And from that, it just kept taking off and taking off. So I do think one of the greatest stories is I was a senior at Glassboro and I went to a public relations event and these guys were there that I knew owned this really cool PR agency. And I walked right up to them as a senior and said, I want to work for you. You don't have to pay me. I'll work for the first 6 months to a year. Just let me get in. And that was my first job in Philadelphia at a public relations agency.
So what did you do for them?
I was at entry level. So I wrote and did research and probably ran errands. We had typewriters back then and we would run our envelopes to the FedEx at the Philadelphia airport to get them over to the West Coast. It was 1988.
So how long did you have to do that until now? Did you keep working with them?
No, I stayed about 2 years. I used to do 2-year stints probably in the beginning of my career. I went to 3 agencies. And then in the early 90s, I got a job at DuPont Merck. And that was an interesting career move. I was on the train and met the head of CBS Radio, offered me a PR job. And then I had an opportunity at DuPont Merck to get into healthcare, public relations. And I had to make a decision in 24 hours. And I was like, I love healthcare, but it's Wilmington, Delaware. I love New York City and radio. And I should go CBS radio. And one day I just had to make a decision and a friend of mine flipped a coin and I said, heads CBS. And as soon as she went like that, she just said to me, how do you feel? And I was like, she said, how do you feel? It's heads. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. So it was my first kind of entree into, you have to go with your gut and take risks. And so I went to DuPont Merck and had an incredible career there.
How many years were you there?
DuPont?
Yeah.
About 8.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I recall you being there, and I knew it was a pretty long tenure. So 8 years, which was really your first experience, your first job, right?
Yeah, it was my first corporate job for sure. The agency, I tell everyone going into public relations, start in an agency. It's really intense, great experience. And I own an agency today, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But at DuPont Merck, I was really young and I had a very interesting position. I was the person who was the face of the company to the AIDS activists. It was the early 90s and all of the AIDS activists were protesting companies and they deserved to. I mean, they were dying. The industry, the government wasn't moving fast enough for the amount of people that were dying. And so we created communities and organizations to involve people living with HIV and activists into our drug development programs and plans. And it just took me around the world to meet so many interesting people. And it was such an important time. And now today, the industry has cured AIDS. So I was there from the beginning and it was just an incredible opportunity.
Well, that was a very long, like you said, that time frame with AZT, right? That was the drug that was supposed to help cure and it actually didn't end up, right? It ended up being a kind of a trial and error type of thing.
There are so many incredible drugs now that were started then. Now there's like combinations and triple therapies. And a lot of people living with HIV are in complete viral remission now. So it's pretty much a cure. So, but back in the day, like we really needed to use communications to say, how are we going to work together? What are we going to do to really help influence and move things faster, whether it's changing government in terms of how clinical trials are done, getting the companies to listen and do more. And so I just had an incredible career at that time where I was able to work with big pharmas like Merck, and we were DuPont Merck and GlaxoSmithKline and other companies that were just incredible. It was called Glaxo Wellcome at the time. So that really, I think, allowed me to, I would be traveling around the world in my early 20s, petrified. And, it just forced me to take risks, do things that were different, influence maybe older people who wouldn't have thought the way I would have in terms of dealing with the AIDS activists and things like that. And just an incredible career there.
And this is now, just for the timeline, right? You graduated 88. This is close to 92. Yeah, 92, 93 area. And then you ultimately finished up around 98. And then you went on your own in 99. Somewhere on there, right?
Yes.
So the reason I'm bringing this just one back step forward, because you think about what was going on then with AIDS, the drugs that were thought to be very much cutting edge, and they were, because it was the only kind of life raft that was being thrown out there. But things didn't move as fast as they do today, right? Your role in getting the public to understand it was much more, not more important, but critical, because like you just said, information had to go out, and it wasn't fast like it is today. And it wasn't all over the place where mistakes necessarily would be stumbling on top of one another. So it's important to understand why that role then in the drug, in the pharmaceutical industry was important, and how the communication went out. And then that laid the groundwork for you when it was 1999 and you said you're going to go start your own place because you had, I think, a vision of what needed to be implemented, which is very complementary to what goes on today, right? So the virtual space, the ability to take people that are resources and use them. There was no Zoom back then.
Right.
So
yeah,
talk about some of that.
Let me take you back there. Yeah. So I left DuPont Merck with 5 guys, and we started a biotech company that was very successful. And we sold it to Baxter. And then I went to GlaxoSmithKline, which was a big pharmaceutical company. Incredible job, incredible experience, but it was huge. And I was like one person in a big public relations department. And I stayed there for a few months. And one day I had the flu, and Oprah was on, and it was the show where she said, "Are you living your best life?" And I'm like, shit, no, I'm not. I don't love my job. I used to love my job, but now I'm not doing everything I was doing. I didn't have all this exposure to the White House or the leadership team of DuPont Merck and all of that. And I just woke up one day and said, I'm going to quit my job and start my own agency. I want to be in a leadership position. I want to be able to control my destiny more. So I did. I quit a big pharmaceutical job and started this agency that I wanted different. I had just gotten married. I didn't even have children yet, but I knew I wanted to set up something where I had a life. So I created a very different agency. It's a network agency at the time where I would use consultants and we would all work from home. And so I stopped with the commute to the big cities, and I decided, I was going to start an agency and work from home. And that was in 1999. And now we're going on almost 25 years later. It's been so successful, and I've been able to do it my way, which has been really important because I want my team to be able to have some work-life balance, but I also have very, very high bar. So it's set up in a way that allows me to kind of pick and choose the best people in the industry. Well,
so what is your first step? Like, you quit your job, now what?
So I was very lucky. I was, like I said, I was at a pharmaceutical company called now GSK. And I was there for a few months, and I said, I'm going to start my own agency. And a few months later, they were looking for an agency, and they called me and said, do you want to pitch our business against the big guys? I mean, I was pitching against some of the biggest agencies in New York City, and I didn't have any people. I didn't have anything. It was just me. Thought I was just going to consult a little. I was in the middle of deciding how to start the agency. And so I took a loan on my mortgage. For $50,000, I brought in 10 consultants. We spent weeks putting together this great proposal and plan, and we went in and presented it. And I'll never forget, the guys at the end of the table says to me, so where do all these people work? And I was like, well, if you hire us and give us this contract, they'll work for Sam Brown Inc. And so we ended up winning the business. And
so you went back to where you used to work?
They called us to pitch the business. So we had GSK Oncology franchise, which is a huge, amazing piece of business, for 8 years.
Wow.
After that. So, and the other thing was, so I was at the point where I'm like starting an agency. I wasn't sure what to call it. And so there's a story that people in my industry know because I've told it many times, which is my grandfather was a very famous guy in Atlantic City in the 1920s. And our name was Mastrangelo. It's my maiden name. And so one day he had an orchestra, and he was the sheriff of Atlantic City. So everyone knew him. And he couldn't fit Sam Mastrangelo Orchestra on the sign. So he changed his name to Sam Brown.
Oh.
And so his name was Sam Brown, his nickname. My dad's nickname was then Sam Brown. And a lot of their friends used to call me Brownie. So the day I woke up and said, okay, I'm starting an agency, I didn't know what to call it. I didn't want to be like Healthcare PR 101 or whatever. So I named the agency after them, called Sam Brown Inc. And now it is just, it's well known. And my dad was around in the beginning. He was very, very proud of the agency. So the agency is Sam Brown Inc., Healthcare Communications. And we've just, ever since that first opportunity on oncology from GSK, they took a chance on us, and we were just set from there. We've had so many incredible opportunities since.
Did it make the pitch easier or harder that you just quit from GSK?
That's interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think what they were looking for were good ideas and good people, and they really liked the team I put together, and many of those people are still with me today. I don't know. That's a good question. I think the department I left was completely different from the people we were pitching, so I guess they weren't upset that I had quit.
And it wasn't isn't it sort of the same role you used to do there?
Yes.
And then they kind of just say, why don't you just come back and work for us?
Well, there's always an internal person, and then there's always an agency to give you the arms and legs to implement big programs and big campaigns.
So did you have to work with who replaced you?
That's a good question. I don't think I did for a while. No.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so, okay. I guess high level as an PR agency right now, because you mentioned before, if you want to get into PR, start at an agency first. What are the other options?
You could go internal to a company and work in their PR department, or you could work at a bank or a real estate organization or anything and do communications for them, social media, public relations. When you work in an agency, you get to see so many different businesses. So how I got into healthcare was one of my first agencies. I loved fashion and beauty, I thought, but I ended up launching the first colored contact lenses. So even though we were going to Vogue and around, to launch a beauty product, it's truly a healthcare product because it's a prescription-based product. Oh. So that got me exposed to healthcare. And I think healthcare is the best field to be in. And I feel like every day I'm making such a difference in terms of communications, that patients learn about things that they can talk to their doctor about and see if it's right for them. So I am a huge, huge fan of healthcare public relations as a career.
And as the umbrella term, a PR agency, what are you handling in regards to marketing and advertising?
Yeah. So I think that's a really good question because everyone knows advertising. You go in, you buy an ad, whether it's on TV, digital, online. Public relations is more about influencing, educating, communicating with all of your publics. So for a lot of our clients that are startup biotech companies, we're communicating to potential investors, business development, physicians who are doing clinical studies, patients. So really it is about creating communications, messaging, platforms, websites, presentations, and a lot of earned media, analytics, all of those things that we do paid and earned. It's all blurred now, but really it's about trying to excite people about your story and your company and getting them to have authentic information about it. And you're both influencers. And a lot of what we do now is identify and communicate to influencers so they can talk more about some of the information and products that we're working with.
Well, I guess that's the question I had. So the PR agency, you reach out to an influencer. Your job, because you're in health tech, is a little different than the agencies that are reaching out to us because ours is very high level. It's hey, promote this product and then keep it moving. You have to explain and educate, I guess, people like us to now understand what your product actually is. And now we have to be almost experts on camera, which is a little bit, we've never had something like that.
Well, but much of, I think, what in the space that she's in healthcare and understanding what the impact of a drug is going to be, that influencer has to have a personal, intimate relationship with it, right? They have to have either used the drug.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Preferably had a good experience with it.
You won't hire an influencer if you're using a migraine drug, you're not going to hire somebody that's never had a migraine.
Correct.
Right.
No, that would be inappropriate. You're looking for authentic patients who actually other patients can relate to and understand what it's like to live through any kind of disease, whether it's, cancer or migraine is something we've worked on. And I think that that's really, it has to be completely authentic. And the other thing you need to know in the pharmaceutical industry, when we're talking about any kind of communications, advertising, PR, influencer, we have very tight restrictions. So when you see an ad on pharmaceuticals, you see how there's all the fair balance at the end. So everything is completely checked and approved and appropriate to the label that comes with a prescription medicine.
Right.
There's an interesting fair balance at the end, right? That's all the tiny print and the voice overlay about the side effects of a drug.
Yeah.
I don't know if many people understood what that meant. So
yeah, it's very, very important.
it's full disclosure. It's covering your butt as a company, as an organization. But I think, back to your point about influencers and people, there's a difference today than years ago with a spokesperson, right? You could find people that would speak about plenty of things, but they weren't necessarily firsthand end users or believing in this case, the drug, right? It's critical that if someone's going to talk about a drug today, that they better have found value in it, right? And
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
There
so
would be no reason to just,
Right. Okay.
And especially nowadays, it's so saturated. Like if you found The Rock to promote your migraine medication, people are like, why is he even on camera right now? Like clearly he's getting paid to talk about something he doesn't even know.
Right. I mean, I do think most companies, their strategy is authentic, real patients, no actors. It has to really be to hear your personal experience about a medicine.
Yeah, that's almost demanded. That's demanded today. And that is different today than, I think, again, growing up watching commercials and being a young person, who it could just be anybody just speaking on behalf of a company.
Yeah.
Right?
I wouldn't advise any of my clients not to go with someone who's really authentic and is telling the truth and would be really talking about their story. I mean, when you're reviewing a seltzer and you go like this, I don't want to know every single one you do. We need to really know what your opinion is. And so that's really the case. So we do a lot of that influencer work. As you know, we've helped one of our clients get Khloe Kardashian, the CEO of one of our clients, Biohaven. He's incredibly insightful and took a really different digital first, patient first approach to marketing the product. And so he was like, we would love to work with Khloe Kardashian. She has migraine. And so it was our agency that actually coordinated all of that. And we shot a public relations video with her, and we were doing interviews and things like that throughout the day. And at the end, we shot a video of her for the employees because we thought that would be really great. Let her tell them their story. And so we shoot this video at the end, and we're Sam Brown, right? The PR agency, not an advertising agency. That video was so great. It became the ad. And ran for many months because there was a bit of time before the ad agency could come in and shoot the ad with her. And so we were so proud. We were so excited back at the agency. Great. We were like, we just shot a major pharmaceutical ad that airs on television with Khloe Kardashian for the greatest migraine drug ever called Nurtec ODT.
And they probably saved a ton of money, right? Because I'm assuming the ad agency would charge a lot more for the production of a commercial versus
Well, there was no production. So,
for yours, right? Like that's what I'm saying.
There was really
they got so much value.
It was incredible. Yeah.
So you mentioned Khloe Kardashian. What does somebody like that level get paid for an advertisement like that?
Well, I can't really comment on her specifically and what she would get paid, but there's all different levels, and somebody, at that level, 120 million followers. I mean, they're all getting over six figures.
So I guess, the dollar amount is less important. How do you even go about negotiation of dollar amounts that big? We
have a great agent, Tom, and he helps us work with different agents, mostly in LA or New York, to identify and find people. I'd be
so curious to be a fly on the wall to hear that negotiation, because some like ours, they give us a number, we say, how about this? They say meet in the middle. We say, okay, done deal. Like yours has to be so much more complex. And is there an understanding of expectations of what this said influencer is going to do? Or is it kind of like, hey, this is the number they're getting? And
every good communications program starts with analytics, right? So you have a really good understanding of who's your audience, what are they listening to, what's their action, and what. So we create programs based on that, and then we can value what that really means.
Right.
And so I would say, yes, you should you can negotiate based on knowing what your reach is.
So what you said, I'm sorry, Tom doesn't work for you.
No, he's an agent.
He's an agent who works
for us.
Oh, but he's
not an employee, but we contract with him.
Contract him out. So he's an individual. Okay. And then he'll go search and find on your behalf. Got it. Okay.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because like his job is to find the perfect target demographic. Yeah, exactly.
He's a talent agent.
Because a lot of value is perceived, right? Like hypothetically, if we have a little over 4 million followers, right? But we're advertising something that's for a bunch of women and our audience is 92% men, that value is way less than the opposite sense. So you can almost charge accordingly. And I'm assuming that's what you guys are looking for.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we create programs like this for all of our clients in terms of what they're trying to achieve and for their business goals. And then we'll look for the right channels, the right people, the voice, the message. We put all of that together.
Right. Because like 1 million views with the perfect influencer is way more valuable than however many with the not perfect influencer.
Yeah.
Right. We need an agent maybe.
So
maybe we do.
Maybe.
Maroof,
I could.
Dan, what are you guys doing? You guys want to represent us?
No.
I'll
tied up.
Happy to help you in any way possible, of course. But I have to say one more thing too about this incredible company, Biohaven. They were very, very successful, and actually the product is so great. It's called Nurtec ODT. And they sold the product franchise to Pfizer so that they could get it out to people all over the world. And we were so thrilled for them, for the product, for Pfizer. And so right before that deal, we had initiated discussions and started working with Lady Gaga.
Wow.
So you may have seen this week that Pfizer launched the ad for Nurtec ODT with Lady Gaga, and Sam Brown had started that. So again, like every time we see something like that, we're so proud.
Wow.
And just how many women and men with migraine, but women especially, are going to be reached to ask and get help for their migraine by hearing that Lady Gaga also lives, with pain and migraine and is saying that, she's on Nurtec.
Do women have more migraines than men?
Yes.
Why?
Hormonal?
No? I don't know. It just men do get migraines, but Jim Cramer, he you guys had him on here. He always talks on his show about having migraine, taking Nurtec and some other medications. Yeah. We've done his show quite a few times. He's on the National Headache Foundation, or I'm probably saying it wrong. I can't remember which one exactly, but he's on a migraine foundation organization that he helps get people as much information as possible.
Wow.
And to talk to their doctor. And so we've done his show quite a few times. He's great. And he always talks about his experience with Nurtec.
Is he a sponsored like influencer of yours?
No. To me, he's considered media.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I guess so. My question, like, what is the difference between a PR agency and an advertising agency?
It's getting blurred now because, but I would say you can tell the difference between earned editorial, reading an article in the Wall Street Journal versus an ad in the Wall Street Journal. We would do the earned. So we would take an exciting new drug development. We would call the science and health writer at the Wall Street Journal and get them to do a story. Now, we also do some earned and paid combinations and things like that. But for the most part, the ad agencies focus, say, on the paid ads, and the PR is more about creating an interactive communications with your publics.
Okay, now I understand. And I guess the lines are blurred because hypothetically, what if you wanted an influencer for both sides?
That's right. That's why a lot of agencies are getting bigger and, in terms of offering everything, because it's all about where are you? Where do you want to be? What is your business objective? And what are all the tools that are going to get you there? And so public relations is one part of the marketing mix.
Yeah. Do you like claim to be an advertising agency too, or you work with somebody else?
No, we often sit across the table from advertising agencies.
Do you prefer to work with one over the other, or if they have one already set, doesn't matter for you?
We play with everyone. I have the best team, and I'm not, I call them the Sam Brownies. And it's the kind of thing where we started the model with a lot of consultants and now we have half employees and half consultants, but it's the best way to build a business and an agency because if they're really good, they stay forever because, you'll keep them. If you give somebody a project and they're not committed, then they probably wouldn't get the next project. So I've been in a situation where now I have 50 people on the team. We're, mid-size agency. And I just feel like I have the best people. So my team works great with everyone. I'm really proud of them.
That's awesome. What is your day-to-day look like now? And has it changed over the past 10 or so years?
Oh yeah, it's changed. So what does my day look like now? I'm expert in media training, presentation training, and crises. So often the team is working on the proactive kind of programming and everything. And I get called in when there are really sensitive issues and counseling the leadership. So I work directly with a lot of the C-suite and, CEO, CFO of the companies.
So you'll sit down with these CEOs before like a big interview and prep them on what to say, what not to say type of thing?
I'm pulling it out of them to make sure that they're really getting, out of it what they want. I always like to say a reporter doesn't know the question to ask you to get to your objectives. So if you're not really well prepared to come into an interview and say, okay, I want to really cover these 3 or 4 things, I work with them to kind of pull it out of them. But I want spokespeople to be really authentic. I don't tell people what to say. I tell them how to rearrange it and to give more passion in the interview and things like that.
Give them some boundaries, some outline, and then the rest is up to them, right?
If you go into an interview where you're just like question, answer, you're not going to achieve your own goals. So it has to be mutual.
It's a really good point.
Well, there's always that, we've talked many times. It's the call to action, right?
Yeah.
What's the call to action?
Yeah.
You have to have that in the equation of what your purpose is. So, all right. So there's a real good overview of what you do. You just touched on it again. You started with really no one, yourself. You grew it out to now 50 employees, right? 50 today?
Employees and consultants, yeah.
Okay. And consultants. So like what's kind of like the next, level for you? What do you envision? Where do you want to kind of, we haven't talked about how successful you are. And I think without talking the personal numbers, right? When you start something from zero and you take a loan out on your house and you cross that line, you take that chance. Now, fast forward 20, how many years? 25 years?
Almost, yeah.
Right? 25 years. How did that pay off? Right? You can share what you want, but what's that payout look like in the growth of this company you formed?
Well, before we get into that, let's just take a quick commercial break.
Everyone wants to know that.
A few moments later.
And we're back with Laura Liotta, founder and president of Sam Brown Healthcare PR Agency.
Right. And we were just talking about how you go from basically zero to hero, right? You start with a loan.
Corny.
Was that corny?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's corny dead. You took a loan and today are in a great position to not only reflect, but to say, all right, look what I accomplished. So, share some of that. That's got to be a fun ride. And to know that there's another phase to this that you must have, not only thought about a million times over, but you can daydream and fantasize and envision what you want that final phase of this to be.
Yes, it is fun to reflect. So when I first started and I didn't have any work, I didn't have a team, I just started calling everyone I knew. And I said, I started an agency. And it was right away I got projects from people I had worked with in my past, people at DuPont, people at GSK. And so that is really, I think, what I was fortunate. I had already had a big career, even though I was so young, and I had a lot of connections. And so that was it. But I can tell you, I had so much fear. And I can remember going in to pitch big pieces of business as an agency that I knew I wasn't really a successful agency yet, I would be so nervous. I'd be going into presentations, and I can remember trying to calm myself down by like singing rap songs. I'd be like bust a move or doing the butt or something to just be like, you breathe, because you can't look young. You can't look like you're nervous. You can't look like you're not experienced. And so all of that you can't teach. It comes with time. And I think when I started the agency, the one thing I've always had is a lot of confidence. And I think that comes from the fact that I'm expert in healthcare PR. Like I don't, and a lot of people are generalists, and that's great, because I think if you want to be a CEO, you probably should know lots of different things. For me, the key to my success is I know my business in and out. I could walk in any room and own it in terms of counseling someone on my specialty. So it was like, if you asked me how I got from there to here, I'd be like, it started in fear and just taking risks. And now today it's so much easier with confidence. But yeah, you got to figure out the finances, right? You have to figure out, I used consultants. So I would be like, they'd bill me an hour, I'd bill the client an hour. And, so you just start growing slowly until you get enough business to where you can hire employees. We never had offices. So we really broke ground in 1999, creating a remote work at home agency. You had to have 10 to 15 years experience to work at Sam Brown. I wanted senior experts, not junior people, because we had nowhere to train them. We were all working from home all over the country. I, at that point, met my business partner, Robert Meister, who's now my chief creative officer and my best friend. And he is incredible. I mean, that was like a pivotal success move for me, to bring him in to now I had enough business to have creative. So he and his team do all the websites and the investor presentations, digital, everything. So I had a big creative department brewing. Then I brought in some media directors, and now I have a big media team, writers, I have digital and social. So things naturally evolved from taking risks, getting business, and then putting the pieces together. And now today I can have junior people because of COVID, everyone's doing it. So we used to work remote without video. Can you imagine?
How?
I was on the road 2 weeks a month with clients, but
Speakerphone.
we use phones.
Yeah.
Phones and emails.
Conference calls,
and,
call center stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but just to back up one quick second, you were so well versed in knowing what you know best. And I think you just touched on something that is really important for younger people. You know your craft. You are prepared. You can walk into a room and you could talk with anybody. That's the shop. But probably one of the shortcomings might be something else, like finance, right?
Right.
So you're not strong suit finance. So what do? Your first hire, you know your craft, you got that locked down. Who's your first hire?
Yeah.
That says, is it Robert as a creative person? I want the building block.
So I could tell you, right? It's a great question. So Robert and I did parallel agencies that worked together for a long time until we merged.
Right. He wasn't working with, that's right.
Correct.
So he ran
so that's
side
less
by
risk
side with you.
for me.
Right.
Right.
Smart.
So it was like, I always had minimal risk because I would only be bringing in people on projects, and I didn't really have to have overhead. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to have it to hire them. But yeah, so then Robert and I kind of merged, and then I hired 25 of the 50 people as employees. But before that, I hired the head of finance and operations, John Penizik. He is like my left arm. I mean, I could not be where I am today without him because of the finance, contracts, and he does HR, everything.
So is John the CEO?
He's head of operations, CFO.
So he's CFO. Mm-hmm. Okay. So so that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. One of my first hires.
One of your first hires was a CFO, someone to do the math. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have to worry about it and things were not necessarily getting lost, right?
Yeah. And you just reminded me that for 10 years, I used to spend 3 days a month doing all the invoices myself. It's how long it took. It was brutal because I was still at the point where I was like, am I a consultant or building a big agency? And then I would say the first 5 years, maybe. Okay. So I do remember when the agency turned 10, someone told me that most businesses don't last till 10 years. They usually flutter out in the first 2 or 3. When I hit 10, my confidence level jumped because I was like, I got this now. I did it. And I think that was probably around the point I also went to Tony Robbins and I did the 3-day where I immersed myself. And it was funny, but it definitely doubled my business.
Do you recommend doing stuff like that?
I do.
Really?
I'm a sponge. So even today at 57, I take a master class every week.
Every week?
I try to. Well, you start them. Sometimes they last a couple weeks. I'm doing the finance one right now. And yeah, you have to keep learning or you can't. So I love podcasts, including Johnnydrinks. I love podcasts. I love masterclass. I'm in an organization called Chief, which is a group for women to empower women into positions of chief executive officer and board of director roles. So we have a group that we meet like every 4 weeks, women who are in executive positions from different industries to share ideas. And they always have classes and information. I'm always trying to keep up.
And I was curious about that too, like being a woman CEO or founder, did that impact anything at all
So we haven't, I'm surprised we haven't talked about it. One of the reasons I started the model of Sam Brown the way I did, I hadn't had children yet, but I wanted to find balance, right? And I have to say, it's very hard to have it all. You can't be 100% mom and 100% CEO. I mean, to be CEO, you can't really have balance to where you're not working really hard. I work really hard, especially back then, but I wanted to leave a meeting and see my kids. So I have 3 children. They're now 22, 20, and 17, but they used to sleep at home instead of going out to daycare. And I always had, great support. You have to have a great spouse. You have to have a great nanny, all of that. So I was able to have it all in a way that was really, important to me. I never wanted to give up my career, but I also wanted to be this Italian mom that I was raised by. So I would have dinner with them. And I did travel, but when I was home, I was home. So I would say there definitely is this whole female versus male, kind of difference in terms of being a CEO. And for me, the key to success was creating my own business and doing it the way I needed to for my life. And I feel it now because my kids are kind of launching, or they're almost launched, actually. One of them should be off soon. So I think that that really helps me decide, okay, how do I take the business to the next level now?
Do you notice a different perception from like the rest of the business world now versus back then as being a woman founder?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, women still do not get equal pay. I think the opportunities have increased tremendously.
Awesome.
Back then, I would say for sure I was, no matter what I was doing in some of the companies that I worked at, I would not have gotten the promotion.
Yeah, it's not.
It's different.
Yeah, it's not.
We have CEOs of I'm sorry, John.
Yeah.
We have CEOs of pharmaceutical companies today as women. It's amazing. I love it.
Okay, so you're saying that it's drastically different then.
Yeah, I was going to say it's no less difficult today, right? Because it was hard for you, but there are ways by way of opportunity that are greater. Okay. So what you did, again, I'm still like just listening to it. We're cutting in and out of different places. Well, we are, but that's okay because that's part of
a journey.
I still want to get back to you took it from zero to where you are and the value of that company. And we're dropping little nuggets along the trail. But you were a mom. You are a mom and you were raising a family, though you had help and you have a partner that you resources, people to help. That's fine. That doesn't make it all of a sudden work. You still have to work because you're the mom. And so that's incredible to think about the balance that's required and the discipline and the preparation that goes into all of those things, right? So when you're prepared, you're ready to take on whatever it is that's in front of you. And you can feel good that you've wrapped it up in a nice, with a nice bow. But okay, so cool. So now we know some of the trail, the value of this company today. What do you do? Like, what do you do? When do you step away, or how do you work another 20 years doing it? What's what's that look like?
So I think halfway through, I definitely knew I needed to scale. So I've been scaling a lot and we've been growing a lot. And I think it's timing perfectly with my children now, so I think now's the time for me to really jump in and say, do I get venture money and really grow the agency to the next level? Do I consider a sale that's going to put us in part of a bigger conglomerate of other agencies? So I have been starting to explore all of those options because I feel like where we are right now and the billings that we have and all of the opportunity ahead of us, just based on the work that we've been able to do, especially over the last 5 years, this is the time to really know that to scale to the next level, I need to,
Sure.
really grow.
What is
change
like
size.
you say next level? I get first of all, like, who is like the biggest PR agency in the country?
Oh, there's huge companies that are have like 50 agencies under them.
So
they're like holding
subsidiary.
companies.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and they're global. We're only US, but there are definitely a number of really big and successful agencies that I respect a lot. So the question is, do I become part of one of those?
Right. Holding
Do
companies.
I just get funding and do it myself and grow? Do I, find interesting opportunities? And I've been having some interesting discussions because
Right.
I'm not done. So whatever does happen, I want to be on the executive team. I want to be involved intimately in the future of whatever it is that would happen next with Sam Brown. And if it doesn't, I'm happy where we are now. I mean, we continue to grow 20% year over year.
Wow.
I, make a fine living. I don't have to change anything, but I kind of feel like, in order to really continue on the trajectory that we're on, I'm going to look at new options.
You make better than a fine living. You're being modest. I want you to tell just real quick, John. So this is what happens with, this is what happens when guys he's a little sensitive to the touch.
No,
It's my
just-
shoulder.
It was rubbing my shoulders.
Oh, thank you. So what Laura again is sharing and speaking to, and again, bringing us on this journey is very fluid. But what I want you to give as an example, you are really, really good to your employees, to your consultants, to your people, very generous. Not only you compensate them well, but you'll plan different things with them, trips, and just talk about one trip you might have done. And because this is where team building, networking within your own organization, your own world is critical to who's going to continue to follow you.
Yeah.
Right? Share some
No,
of that.
I adore my team. It's like we're family. We are. And especially the really good, dedicated people. And you just know they just rise to the top, right? So, since we don't have overhead, I would always spend what I thought that money would be on a trip every year because we all work from home.
Right.
So if I'm not paying rent and electric, then where are we going to go? So I brought in the team to a number of places. We did a cruise, which was incredible. And we've gone to, just this year, we went to Mexico, went an all-inclusive. And so we have 2 days of meetings, but then we have lots of celebrations. So that's really important, just to get the team together and the camaraderie and to reward them and appreciate them, but also to make sure we're also on the cutting edge. So I'm having, during those meetings, we're learning new things, bringing in new people and that kind of thing. But I will tell you, the number one thing is your human resources. Like, I'm a consulting business. Our business is our service, which is our people. Like, we're not selling a product, we're selling a service. They're the most important thing. The one thing I think all of them will tell you, the reason why they're loyal to Sam Brown is because I fire mean clients even if the budgets are huge. I do not make decisions based on money. I make decisions based on what's really right and wrong, and I never leave my values and what's right for my team. And so I've fired clients because they were just awful. And even if it was $1 million account, in the end, I feel like it all works out because the team is happy and stays, and they know I would do that for them.
Very important. Woman, hear you roar. John,
It's funny you
he
say.
doesn't even know.
No, you never even heard that song.
It.
Yeah.
I've heard the song.
Okay, yeah, who sings it? No, it's okay.
It's funny you say. Okay, yeah. It's funny you say fire clients. Like, that just goes to show your perspective on, because In reality, they're hiring you.
Right.
But you say in the opposite because your team is more important.
And that's the key. When you get a client, it's a collaboration. It's a mutually successful collaboration. The better the client, the better the agency. And the work is so much better. And I have been, oh my God, I've had incredible GSK, Insight, GW Pharma. We were the agency that launched the first FDA-approved cannabinoid or medical marijuana.
Really?
Yeah. And then Biohaven, the work we've been able to do with them just across their whole really exciting neurological portfolio. So there's certain clients that you just can do such great work with and for, and there's a mutual respect. Sometimes smaller clients come in or other, even other bigger ones, they come in and there's just like vendor, client.
Right.
And if it's, all of a sudden my team's up all night working Saturday and Sunday and things, right away if it's like not mutually respectable.
We understand
respectful.
that, right? I mean, this is corporate America, and she's finding this value for her team, right? So it's the vendor client.
What do we understand?
Well, we understand on a very small level, but what she's expressing and explaining is the relationships. Again, relationships drive this bus.
Yes.
Period. I don't care who you're working with, who they work for. To her point, she's not going to compromise her values, and nor should the person that they're working with. There has to be that alignment and that respect and this synchronicity that helps this whole thing flow and go, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's sometimes this misnomer that corporate America is rigid and you can't find that, right? You can, because it's still people.
Can. And you know why I feel this way? Because my two most important values in terms of for the client, not for necessarily the team, service and quality. So when I know that we are completely committed to the best service and the best quality, if you ask us for something, we are going to put 150% to it, then I can demand back. If we're the kind of agency that maybe is cutting corners or you're questioning, I know the value that and the experience that my team has and the product in terms of that service that we're giving to them. So then I do feel like I can say, we can be we're very picky. We don't want to work on just like another derm cream. We're looking for great new rare disease drugs, cancer treatments. There's so much interesting technology out there, and we start early. We'll work with a couple people coming out of Penn or Stanford or somewhere with an idea, and they have to go to the street because you know how very expensive it is to develop drugs. They have to get investment. So we're helping them tell their story to the street, to get investment, to do the first study, second study. And our goal is to stay with them all the way to the market. So you have to pick what you think is really going to be a great product or a great, medicine, or it has an impact. We're in the human interest, I think the greatest industry in the world. I mean, we're making a huge impact on human health. So that is the other thing keeps us going all day.
How much of your business is outreach versus inbound? Because you said you're still
for new business.
Yeah.
Oh, it's mostly inbound.
Really?
I always tell the team the best marketing is do a good job on the business you have, because it goes from there. So almost all of our work comes from word of mouth. I would never hire somebody to cold call people to do business. I know how to network, and I do a lot of networking. I'm leaving here actually to go to a conference. But mostly incoming. Like one of our CEOs will sell his business and then go somewhere else. Most of our clients get acquired, which I always think is wow. It shows how good we are at picking them.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's so you don't do any sort of
Not really. Sometimes I'll see like an Alzheimer's drug or something, and I'll see who I know on the board, and I will, not the board, the management team, and I'll call, but that's rare. And I don't need to poach. If I know an agency has an account, I'm not going to go poach their business. There's enough work for everyone. Yeah. I just think your client. So after 25 years, right? A lot of my clients have moved around, and they're going to know to call us if they get in a situation.
Again, it goes back to those relationships. So where you are today, 25 years in, and where you were 1 year in, I would think you did a lot more outbound stuff. You had to go put yourself, I would think, and let people know what you were doing,
Yes.
what your team was doing. So let's
Yes.
understand the balance there. This is
Yes.
25 years in the making. And anyone who starts any business, self-employed, working for a company in a sales role, whatever it is, you will spend 99% of your first days planting seeds. You have to plant those seeds. And then as you graduate through with experience, it starts to shift. It's 75% planting seeds, 25 cultivating your crop. And then as you get into the world that we're talking today, it's probably 1 or 2% planting seeds, 98% cultivation, right? That's
right.
because you made it through all these tests of who you are by character, who your team is. And to your other point, people move around, attrition, right? People who were making decisions 20 years ago might be passed on and gone, right?
Yeah.
And their predecessor or their successor, whichever way you want to, again, evaluate it, that person has a relationship with maybe someone from your team. So it's all about
and that's
time.
important.
Yeah,
it's
all
not
about
just
time.
me.
Right.
Like my team has a reputation. So Robert, my creative director that I mentioned before, he's worked with people. They know he gets it. Like he's at a conference and then all of a sudden he's finding business. And all of my senior leadership team, they all have been in the industry for so long. They're so well connected. It just feeds off of it.
Yeah.
Well, like you said too, and you brought up a really good point before, is like you were planting seeds by working. You know, like you didn't just hop in after college, say, I want to start this on my own, and there you go. You already had relationships cultivated,
Right.
which I think is super important for anybody looking to start something is
Yeah.
I think it's important to get real world experience.
Oh, yes.
You learn a lot, but then you're building up these relationships that now you can lean on and say, hey, I'm starting something new. Do you want to give a shot, give me a shot?
Yeah.
So that's, I think nowadays,
some of
everybody
my
wants to be-
tips are not like rocket science. I mean, you have to work hard.
Yep.
When I hear people talk about balance, I mean, you're not going to start a successful business like Sam Brown with, working 5 hours a day, working from home, kind of, scrolling on TikTok only. You have got to really, really put in the time and work really hard. And it's something that I'm worried about where the world is going post-COVID, because everyone's like, oh, I can work at home. But you have to work. My team knows, like, if a client calls you at 5 o'clock, usually we're in the news business. We probably have to get it out before the market opens the next day. Now, I don't want them working like that all the time, but there's this level of commitment, I think, that you need to be successful.
Yeah, you do. And there's sound bites, living your best life, living the best version of yourself.
Right.
That, I hate to sound our age, but this is our age. This is what affords us the opportunity to share and say. Too much of that is easy and fun. People want to go have that restaurant experience, from that restaurant experience to that vacation experience. And they put those things they envision in living their best life ahead of working your ass off first.
They come together because I love a good restaurant.
Right. Right. But there is a balance, but let's put it in perspective.
But yeah,
again,
and I love to travel, and you figure out what it is that, I really think, there's a lot of great people to learn from now. And I don't think we had that. I'd have to go to Tony Robbins for 3 days. I'd have to buy the Stephen Covey book, right? We did all of those.
Dr. Chester.
Right. We
Dale
did all of
Karras.
that. Now you can literally go on TikTok and somebody like Mel Robbins is telling you got to get out of bed in 5 seconds and get going, because the day is not going to wait for you.
Yeah.
And you can, Joe Dispenza, there's all kinds of people that everyone can follow. I love Jay Shetty. I mean, there's so much to learn. And I think that might feel like it's still social media distraction, but I say program your feed into things that are going to light your fire. Watch a show like this where you're going to learn something. You're not really learning something by watching the dogs. They're cute. Yeah. But, and I worry about teens just Snapchatting all day. What are you getting? You've got to find ways to grow, learn, explore, because then when you get into a business setting, you're so much more interesting. I used to read the Wall Street Journal every day. Now, I loved having the paper in my hand. Now, there were sections I didn't understand. I'm not a finance person, but there were different things that it would be like, if you just could read most of any one publication. Now we get the feed, right? I get the.
That's such a, but you just said, I've never heard like program your feed, because the reality of if I were to say, I'm going to get off social media, in my world, it's actually probably hindering my ability to grow. But like, okay, I'm going to be on my phone for I have like 8.5 hours of watch time every day. It's disgusting. Right. But if I'm going to do that, I might as well now reprogram and make sure I'm staying on and investing into the content that's actually making me better. Because everybody's like, oh, stay away and get off your phone. It's like, you don't have to.
Yes, I agree. You can, I definitely try to program my feed, but the one time I search a necklace, my whole feed or something, I can't think of, my whole feed is clogged up. So it's hard to do, but I think it's easier on podcasts.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The only reason I miss commuting is because I need more podcast time. Yeah. It's like, when do you do it? I try to keep my earbuds in and do it. But today, another thing I'm concerned about as an older person is the amount of overload.
Yeah.
So, the emails, everyone's having conversations. We have emails, we have Teams, we have text, we don't have phone calls anymore, but it's just so much. Like, how do you wake up in the morning and truly know what you want to achieve and what you want to focus on, or what's just coming into you? So I can't react to every email. I'll be sitting there for 2 hours when I knew I had to write a proposal and I just lost 2 hours.
So let's talk about this, because here's my, not trick, but my discipline, right? One of my disciplines. So you don't go down that rabbit hole of opening up your phone and diving right into, because it's there. You have 12 new messages that somehow came in overnight, because you looked at your phone 11, 12 o'clock before you went to bed, and then all of a sudden you wake up and there's a feed of all this stuff. Okay. So I've always found that you're much better off, before you open up what was the laptop and now today's the phone, to get yourself, do you first. You go to the gym, or you eat something, or you have your coffee, or you read your paper, or you walk your dog. I don't care what it is, but do yourself first. Prepare mentally for what you want the day to be and what you want the day to bring. Okay. Yeah. That's critical. If you don't discipline, I think that way, some form, then you just are sucked into this vortex of, oh my God, I have to do this presentation now again. I didn't realize there was a mistake from yesterday. Just slow down, relax. The world's not going anywhere. And if you're disciplined, right, you have this routine, you'll get to it in a timely manner. I'm not saying push off all that stuff till 12 noon, but you don't have to roll up out of bed at 7 a.m. and see what time it is and look at your emails right away. Right. Or go on your TikToks.
You are what you focus on.
Right. So stay off of it.
Stay focused.
Stay off of it for a little while. Get yourself, own yourself, and treat yourself right.
My business partner is really good at it. On his calendar, because we all have, you take each other's meetings, right? So if I let my calendar go, I would wake up in the morning and have a full day. I didn't even know what it was, because someone else is taking.
Just plugging you in.
Like putting stuff in for you.
So what Robert does is, you'll see on his calendar, meditation, focus, or at the end of the day, he has, he blocks times to do certain things. I'll block times where I know I have to write a letter or a proposal, or I'm doing something. I will block time to work. Because if not, someone will take, all of a sudden you get to 5 o'clock because you had so many calls and you're like, I didn't start working yet.
Yeah.
And we bill by the hour. So you also have to put in your time in 15-minute increments. And so it's like you have to stay on top of your time. Yeah. And to me, the calendar is the gift.
The time blocking.
Because you can control it.
He'll block off like minutes so nobody else can come in and say, hey, we have a meeting this time.
Right.
Interesting. You give really good sound bites, Laura. You should have your own podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're going to be a permanent guest on the Johnnydrinks podcast. Well, we have a couple more questions, but before we get into that, we want to take one more quick commercial break.
A few moments later.
And we're back with Laura Liotta.
Aunt
Laura. But she's really not my aunt.
Well, she is like your aunt.
I had a question. The workforce today, because we talked about the differences between like 21-year-olds now
Yeah.
or 21-year-olds back then. Do you notice a difference in your workers? Like, are the younger ones lazier, or they look to take more time off?
No, not mine, but I don't, so I can't really judge. No, I don't think so.
Because you said you were afraid.
I'm afraid, but I curate my team. So I have the best of the best. So I can't really speak, but I would think generally watching TikTok and other things, I feel like the world is going that way. But my junior people are really, really good. It's the first time I've ever had junior people, because now I used to say, you can't work here because you're not going to get the great experience you would get going into an agency.
Yeah.
But now since COVID, we can, because with all of the teams and the Zoom and all of that, they are able to get great experience. So for the first time, we have some entry level and mid-level people on the Sam Brown team. So I would say it is definitely a fear. I don't see it I only have 3 or 4 entry level positions in the agency, but I think that it's something, I want to be conscious of, to give entry level people the pep talk.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Don't slip back.
Right. You pull it out of people. Like, I don't want to be lazy around you. Like, you're motivating just by being who you are. And that's probably why the people around you aren't. But I work with younger guys too. Like, the people behind the camera are 22 and 25. And I've never sensed any sort of laziness. And if the opposite, almost, like, they'll work until the job is done. It doesn't have to, it could be 8 o'clock at night. And if it needs to get done, it gets done. But I think the difference as a society, what I notice is we're way more bored with casual conversation. Like, a 50-year-old can walk up to me and have a conversation about nothing. And I'm like, all right, buddy, I don't really care. But you guys seem to like talk about nonsense, and you're okay with that, which is a beautiful thing. I think people nowadays, that's our struggle, is that we need such an intense dopamine hit for us to be satisfied, that regular conversation just isn't doing it. That's the one thing I notice. Like, people are like always afraid of, we don't know how to conversate. I think we do. It's just, we're not interested in talking about
Do you think that's a general? Did you feel that way too?
I don't know. I guess if you think about, everyone's thinking in 120 characters or less, that is different than we did. Right. I think, we talked more on the phone. I mean, Jenna and I still talk, no matter how busy I am, we still have to talk on the phone every day for our therapy session.
It could be hours.
But I don't think, nobody leaves messages anymore and listens to them. Nobody talks on the phone really. So, but I don't know if I wouldn't call it laziness, but I guess, what you're saying is you're bombarded with information so much that it's hard really to keep it satisfied.
Well, it's not just information, it's a highlight reel of information. So it's, for example, every TikTok that I see is the best of the best, because that's why it's in my feed. It's not the boring regular conversation. I think that's the real difference.
That is the challenge, right? Because they are programmed more and differently than us. Swipe to the next one. Get left for someone you don't like, right for someone you like. I mean, it's the instant. If it doesn't grab you within the first 2 seconds, 3 seconds, they're moving on. Yeah. So that is, but I think that'll get reprogrammed. They will get reprogrammed. I'm optimistic that the things that concern you concern me, and the things he just points and touches on are relevant. He believes it. He's right there in the age demographic. But as you get older, you will understand things differently. Life will tend to slow down. Life will tend to smash you in the face, and you'll look at something differently. Right? You have another understanding and appreciation for it. And so it's okay. They will evolve and be perfectly fine. The one thing that I agree with you, and you said it earlier, is, more along the lines of, well, everyone wants to have this, younger people want to get right to it and make $1 million. They all want to make $1 million. How do I make $1 million? Well, gosh, I mean, I don't even know how do we make it? We just started and knew it was somewhere out there. And then before you know it, oh, wow, your bank account's got money in it because you saved it and you didn't spend it to go on a cruise when you were 25 or 30 years old because you knew you wanted it. So those real life things, the scenarios will change and affect the course a little bit. And I think that, again, that's the one thing I'm not sure because they don't get it fast enough, if all of a sudden they associate their failed at something. Right.
Right. Well, that's what you're both saying. The speed with which you're getting information and overload it equates to I want to be rich tomorrow, and it takes a long time. It's a build.
Yep.
And it goes always back to what I guess that's why I mentioned Tony Robbins, which most of his class is about focus, what you focus on. And you can't focus today. You're not just waking up and saying, I'm going to do this, this, and this. You're getting hit and it takes you off the rails. And that's a problem.
Or they're not thinking the night before, the week before, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Right. There's very little.
Right.
And it's not any one person.
Right.
It's clear as day.
Well, could you imagine writing a 30-page business plan?
Hell no.
Right. Like that's what we did.
That's what we did.
I still do. Do you know I go away every August by myself for 2 days. I put my phone in the safe, and I check it at the end of the day or whatever. And I write my business plan for the following year at a spa by myself. And I started just a couple years ago because I felt like I wasn't stepping back. And so that is my time to step back.
What do you write for 30
Poconos.
pages?
Huh?
What do you write for 30 pages?
Oh, it's not 30 pages anymore. But when you start a business, it should be probably 30 pages. Well, you have to understand, what do you really want? And what is the time frame? And is it one, for me, that's what I'm working on. Is it 1 year? Is it 5 years? Is it 15 years? And how am I going to get there? And what are the steps? And what are we really good at? What are we not good at? Where do we need to grow? What's AI going to, I could put in, what's AI going to do for this? Or what's going to happen when government regulations change this in our industry? There's really a lot to think about, but you think you're thinking about it in the mad rush of the day to day, but you can't. You have to really get quiet and just step back. And it's really hard for me because the key to my success, I think, is my monkey mind. So I'll never say I've mastered it because my anxiety and my ability to do a million things at once is probably the key to my success.
And that's probably why it's so important for you to do stuff like the retreat.
Yes.
Do you share that with other people, the business plan, or is it kind of for yourself?
Last 2 years ago, I did slides and I presented them, and it depends. Is it business? Is it personal? Which business plan is it?
Right, and there's more than one business plan,
right?
Which is very important. So when you're talking about a business plan, there's not just one. You need 2 and 3, because if on this road AI chinks at your armor, steals somewhere, someplace your people. Well, how are you adjust? That's in the second business plan.
Right.
So when that happens, you're ready because you have your next plan.
Right.
So I can't agree with you more. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Episode.
It's impressive that you do that.
But
you have to. I have to. Yeah. And then
that's how we understood business to begin with, first of all, because that's what we afforded and learned from those who were successful when we would admire them. How do you do it?
Yeah.
The first thing people would say, what's your business plan?
Right.
And you couldn't just answer it.
Right.
You had to provide.
You had to have it. You had a budget. You had timelines.
Oh, yeah.
You have
money in, money out.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And now I think, you have to remember too, in my business, my day-to-day business, we're creating plans that we present to clients. So we are plan thinkers because the client has to understand what are the objectives, what's the strategies to get there, what is everything you're going to do for us, how much does it cost, how long will it take, when will I see a return on that investment, what impact will it make, how does it fit in with everything else. So I try to do that same process for Sam Browne, to make sure, okay, the agency is going to continue to grow. What's the market like? Yeah.
Would you say, was I accurate when I said, I feel like I learned to business plan when I started really working? I don't think I learned it in college. I don't think there was no class that, even my business classes didn't break it down and say, there was some things about revenue and economics and, the whole thing about, selling a widget and that stuff, right? Those are all relative things to our education. But I think I learned it more just by doing and being in and around, corporate America in a company setting.
I think the joke at Sam Browne, if you want to know Laura's leadership style or trying to read Laura, they'll say she's short. So if I'm short on an email, I tell all the new people coming in, I'm never mad. I'm never mad. I'm hardly ever mad. I'm never mad. It's just, but my responses are like, yes, no, go.
Yeah.
Like
just
I
don't know.
can't, but I'd like to know what's going on. So please copy me so I could, if I want, make sure I know. But I try to, because I just feel overloaded too.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's overloaded.
You have an executive team like
Yes.
Robert. Okay, so how
Yes.
often do you talk with your executive team about what you're doing?
So I
Daily,
would-
weekly?
Yeah, no, that's important. I talk to all of them every week, but we have formal meetings twice a month. And then we have all agency calls once a month. And then each team meets, and then the team leads usually meet with me so I know what's going on. A lot of the creative department, like the creative department, the media department, and the digital and social, they have morning scrums where they meet every morning, and plan the
Really?
day. Yeah. 15 to 30 minutes. You don't get into the details. This is what's due. This is what's hot. So there's a lot of internal process within the agency to make sure everything is delivered. We have Workfront and other things. We have platforms and technology that also help us track everything that's going on because, we have 30 to 40 clients at any one time. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And so I have like East Coast leads, West Coast leads, different teams, things like that. The best team ever.
I love that your passion for your team.
Oh my God, they're the best.
And
I never
feel
worry
that.
about them getting poached.
Really?
Isn't that funny? Yeah. It's a big issue in agency world. People get poached. I don't worry. I don't worry about it because I think if you set up an environment and give people the ability to grow and lead and, make a good living and enjoy it. And we also build each other up. Like if you need a month off for a personal issue or like, that something happens, everybody there has your back. That's it.
Well,
The
people
key.
leave people. They don't leave companies, right? So if you're treating somebody well and wherever you are in the infrastructure of a company, you may want to hang your hat on, say, when someone leaves you as a leader to say, well, they just didn't like the company. No, they probably just didn't like you, right? And if they like you and there's synergy and you're treating each other well with respect, that's where the longevity, it's a relationship. It's like anything else. If you're in a healthy relationship, it flourishes.
Yeah.
If it's toxic and abusive, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes it's people leave. It's not a good fit.
Well, it's interesting because I notice it too, and I said this. I say this a lot. Agencies. I can't tell you how many people I'll talk to. 8 weeks go by, and I'm like, hey, and they're like, oh, I'm at another agency now. I'm like, why? And now they're back. It's hard for me to establish relationships with these third-party agencies because they're all over the place. And why do you think that? Like, there's no loyalty to these agencies?
I mean, some of it could have to do with size, right? We're a nice size, 50 people. We all know each other. I mean, I guess when you're talking companies that have thousands and thousands of employees, it has to be different. It's more formalized HR systems and all of that. So I can't speak to that, but I definitely agree that there's a lot of movement.
It's crazy.
And clients call it the bait and switch. Like if we go in and present with a team, they hire us, and then 2 weeks later, the team's completely different. They don't like that.
Right.
So consistency in an agency is really important.
I think what contributes to what he's touching on is people bouncing around is they don't feel like they're part of anything. So in the larger spaces, it's all Zoom, it's all out of your house, and you're an island, right? And so there is no company picnic. There is no monthly meeting that you're all together, that you feel like, hey, I'm frustrated, you're frustrated, but what are we really frustrated about? You don't have anybody to bounce off, any accountability partner necessarily, without making that formal. And I know from growing up through the layers of corporate America, it helps to vent and feel like you can talk about some of the things that are bothering you. And if you don't have that person or the trust and confidence in that, you might just say, well, I'm going somewhere else. So I think that's probably one of the trade-offs to, what younger people in these places of structure and companies today are trying to get more people back into the offices 2-3 times a week versus being 100% remote. So that's going to take some time, I think, to probably correct itself.
I think we need a company picnic.
Maroof, Dan, Chipotle today coming up.
I'm
You
actually
can just
starving. I'd love
DoorDash,
some
just
Chipotle.
DoorDash it because I'm
Yeah,
not
don't
going
get crazy. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, maybe DoorDash.
Food isn't gonna come here for sure. Yeah,
But see that isn't that something?
we do. Maybe we'll take a little
Yeah.
trip,
Yeah.
a little company vacation.
Probably not. We have some videos to make
You
today.
could cruise.
Oh well,
We'll
they'll
take you
bring
on
their
a
camera.
cruise.
They're gonna work for sure.
All right.
Well,
So-
we'd like to wrap up every podcast by asking the guests 2 questions. What has been in your life, doesn't have to be with Sam Brown, the lowest of your lows, and follow that up with what has been the highest of your highs?
The lowest of my lows would have to be a loss. Like we pitch a big business, we think we're going to get it, and the team works so hard and we're not the one picked. And that does happen. Usually it's supposed to be 2 out of 10 times, but it's been less for us. And that's really hard because you're so bummed about it. So I can definitely remember times in my career where I didn't get the job I thought I should have gotten, and I didn't win the business that we should have won, but it's always happens for the right reason.
I forgot to, and I don't mean to cut you off from this questionnaire. I didn't ask you, did you ever feel like quitting at one point and saying like, this isn't for me when you started
Never
your own?
Sam Brown.
Really?
Yeah, never.
That's so interesting.
No. I love it.
Wow.
I've been so lucky, which is preparation, and everything else. But I've loved every single day of it.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's really, we do, we lose sometimes. And it's hard to compete against big agencies. And we've also had clients we have this great client, love it so much, they'll hire somebody, they have friends. So then they'll let us go and bring in their friends, but it works for us on the other side because our friends will go somewhere. And so, yeah, there definitely have been some lows on that. But I would say I did not have a massive low professionally. No.
Wow. What has been your highest of high?
Oh my God, there's so many little ones. I don't want to just put it on to like one project or anything. I would say every year at the retreat where I have the team together and I make a speech, that is it. Like just to be able to get everyone together and celebrate our successes and be there for each other and to recap that, I get choked up. I'm most proud. That's amazing. So I would say our long-term success is definitely the high of the high. And the ability to still, it's not easy to sustain and to have a very successful business. It usually has, peaks and valleys. And we've been really fortunate.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's good.
That was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. I really did.
I feel like we're just hanging out.
Well, we are just hanging out,
That's all it
but
is.
now we're learning so much more about you that even as a very good friend, I've not been a benefactor of. And so appreciate you opening up, sharing with us your success. You're an impressive person, friend. You happen to be a woman, and that's not to take away from anything at all because
You're a woman.
No, well, that's my point. It doesn't matter, male or female. What matters is you're a successful person. And more power to you to have to struggle and work through and break down these walls. All the while, again, I go back to raising a family, having 3 children.
I'm most proud of them.
That's, well, sure.
They're great humans.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of them.
As long as they don't get in trouble. They don't get in trouble, right? No one gets in trouble,
Yeah.
Nick. Matt, no one gets in trouble.
No, they're
Everyone's
angels.
good.
They're angels, those guys.
Everyone's
Yeah.
good.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you, Laura, for coming on, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Love it.
Like, subscribe, share.
Cheers.
That's it for today. Peace.